So now we just want to talk about some of the ways that you can get involved. Deb's talked about some of that earlier, but I want to present a few calls to action, what we really want to highlight out of this webinar. Next, please. So the first thing that I want to do is encourage you to download TurtleSat again. As Ricky said, it's a brand new version that's just come out, and it's available for both iPhone and Android to download now. Basically, as soon as you can, download it and get out there and start looking for turtles and start looking for turtle nests and record what you see, because every little bit of data that you can send in for us really helps. One of our collaborators, Geeta, asked me a couple of weeks ago for an estimate of kind of what's the value of this kind of project. And when we go out and do our turtle trapping, it's a pretty expensive process. And so any data that we can get that comes in from the community to tell us where turtles are, where you're seeing turtles, where you're not seeing turtles, that's really valuable to us, because it gives us an idea of what's there already. So that's something you can do now. You can also enter data on a PC or a Mac online just as easily. You can do either way if you like. Next, please. Here's the QR code for the TurtleSat. So it will work now. If you want to take your mobile phone and try to scan that right now, I'll give you a couple seconds and just leave that up, I guess. One of the other things that is really important for TurtleSat and also our website, 1Milllion Turtles, which I'll talk about in a minute, is it gives us a way to get in touch with you as well. So I'm not sure if you saw on the slide that Ricky showed, but we've used TurtleSat not only to collect data on turtles, but we've also used it to collect data from people about what they like about it and what they don't like about it. And so those are some of the things that we've used to upgrade TurtleSat in this current version. Next slide, please. Okay, the second call to action is please visit and bookmark 1millionturtles.com, and this will help you to be informed of the upcoming exciting events and opportunities to get involved in. For example, we've talked a little bit about a national nest predation experiment, and the basic idea there is one of the scientific things that we do to see what the impact of foxes and pigs are on turtles is we dig holes in the ground and put chicken eggs in and see how fast those nests, those fake nests, get dug up by foxes. And in some places that we work, the foxes hit them within 24 to 48 hours. And so you know that the foxes are a really big problem in those areas. So that's something that we want to give some training on, because there's some animal ethics issues, but those opportunities will come up on the website. A similar opportunity will be how to protect turtle nests using mesh. So that's something that anybody can do. Both of these are things that anybody can really do. And then we're also going to be presenting information about our Turtles in Schools program. So when these come live, what we're going to do is we're going to start with some training videos that will be accessible by people who register for them. We don't want just anybody doing it, because we need to regulate them for the animal ethics legislation. But it will be easy to register, it will be easy to access, and it will be easy for you to do those if you're interested in them. We will be contacting people via email, the emails that you've provided during registration, which you can unsubscribe to or unsubscribe from at any time. But when those become live, we will send out emails to let you know that those opportunities are available. And the National Nest Predation Experiment, that should be up in the next month or so is when we want to get that started. Because then hopefully you can help us see how bad the fox and pig problems are across a much larger area of Australia. Next slide, please. The third call to action is if you see a turtle crossing a road, if it's safe to do so, it's really important. You want to look both ways and not walk into traffic. You want to protect yourself first. Is if you see a turtle crossing, please just help it across to the other side in the direction that it's heading. That's the best thing to do. We don't want you to pick them up and move them to another wetland or river. That turtle's probably been walking across that area since before the road existed. There's a good chance of that. So it knows where it's going, and it's best to just help it on its way. And we really emphasize this because this is a major cause of adult mortality. So a lot of adult turtles get smashed on the roads, And anything we can do to help them avoid that fate will help populations as well as protect that one turtle. Next, please. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed everything that we've talked about so far. What we want to do is start doing the Q&A. And I know there's a few questions to pop up. This will last about 20 minutes. And as I said before, I don't think there's heaps of questions, so I think we'll be able to get through most of them. But if we don't get to your question in the time that we have available, we will address that question on our Facebook page and also on an upcoming FAQ page on our website. So we like these kinds of ideas because if you have a question, there's a really good chance that a lot of other people have that same question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off your questions and I'm going to pose them to one person on our panel. If I could have our next question to see the panel, please. So this is the list of people. I'm not going to answer any questions myself because we've got such a good big group of folks here. So what I'm going to do is try to think of the best person to answer each of the questions that come up. So the first question I've got is, how is Western Australia involved in the 1 Million Turtles program? And I think Anthony Santoro is our Western Australia representative, so I'll pass that question on to him. Anthony, can you answer that one, please?
Hi. So in WA, we've got the Saving Our Snake Neck Turtles program, which is how we're basically involved with 1 Million Turtles. So that is essentially, it's the overarching project that we have, which is where we're trying to expand turtle trackers throughout the southwestern snake neck turtle, which is WA1's range. And so Turtle Trackers is a citizen science program that has been developed and fine-tuned over the past 3 years with help of City of Coburn and a few other partners. And so now we're integrating the use of the TurtleSat app, which is part of the 1 Million Turtles as well. And so essentially I work with local councils and we train dedicated kind of turtle trackers, and then they go around to their local wetland during nesting season and they help us with finding the turtles and they protect the nests. And essentially we've got like a network. So if a turtle tracker sees a turtle, they can let it send out like an alert to all the other turtle trackers. So then we can get heaps of people down there, protect as many nests and females as we can. And so over the few years, that program has been pretty successful at reducing predation of both the females and nests. So yeah, we're really interested and hoping that lots of local councils join in and we can kind of go throughout WA.
Thanks, Anthony. Next question, why are tortoises called freshwater turtles? This is a question we get a lot. Arthur, can you help us with that one, please?
I guess the British terminology was to call marine turtles turtles, and anything that moved over land or was in fresh waters was called a tortoise. And Australia adopted that for a long time, but the international sort of consensus is that now we call tortoises are restricted to those things that walk around on club feet in the desert, and turtles are anything that swim. And so we now tend to call them freshwater turtles and marine turtles, and Australia doesn't have any land tortoises. So it's just the way things have changed over time.
Thanks, Arthur.
I get asked that question a lot, and I say it's all in the spelling.
Thanks, Arthur. I would also say from our perspective, a lot of times we don't mind if you call them turtles or tortoises. It comes across either way. Next question we've got, how big do the hatchlings have to be before they're released into the wild? Don McKnight, I'll pass that one on to you. What do you think about that one?
So it's a really good question. And there's a lot of different approaches people have taken. The trade-off is the bigger the turtle is when you release it, the less likely it is to get eaten by something, the more likely it is to survive to adulthood. But also, it's a lot more work to rear them up to that point. And so the key is really finding that balance between sometimes it's best just to release them as soon as they hatch. Sometimes it's best to rear them up in captivity for a while. And you really just want to balance those costs of rearing and the likelihood that the turtle is going to survive in the wild once it's been released.
Great, thanks, Don. Mike, I'll pass this one on to you. With turtles usually returning to the same nesting spot, how do we encourage them to nest on a floating area or alternative safe spot?
Thanks, Van. Yeah, the freshwater turtles don't necessarily return to the same nesting places year in year. So a river, for example, is a fairly dynamic environment. So where there might be a nesting beach this year is not going to necessarily be a nesting beach in 10 years' time after the next big flood. So they're fairly flexible in where they nest. If we set up the islands with the sort of right physical cues in terms of vegetation and access to the water and so on, they definitely nest in there.
Thanks, Mike. Marilyn, I'll pass this one to you if you're there. What do you do if you find a turtle that has been hit by a car and is injured but still alive? The person who asked says, I always take them to the vets. Are you there, Marilyn? I heard your microphone came on for a second. She may be having some technical difficulties, so I'll step in for her on that. What we do recommend that you take an injured turtle to a vet wherever possible. The veterinarian is the best person to make a judgment on what kind of treatment that they might need, or if they're beyond treatment. Interestingly, one of the things that sometimes happens with adult females that are hit when crossing a road, if they are gravid, so if they have eggs inside them and the eggs are not damaged, the vet may be able, if the turtle has to be euthanized, they may be able to rescue the eggs. And if the eggs are in good shape, they may still survive and develop and hatch. So it's really important to take them to a vet if you can. Ricky, next one I'll send to you. Is the mesh that we place over the nests plastic or metal? And could foxes dig up or break the plastic mesh?
Hello, thanks for the question. Ideally, it is a plastic mesh. So Turtles Australia, which Graham is here, he's come up with an awesome way of actually protecting nests using pretty much that, you know, that green lattice that you can buy at like Bunnings, and that plastic mesh. It works really, really well. Although Graham and we've had some issues with some problematic foxes. They've been able to get in, but very few. So a metal mesh, they've tried a different metal mesh. Graham might want to jump in and actually have a discussion about that too, or we can take that, you know, ask Graham at Turtles Australia the question as well.
Thanks, Ricky. Unfortunately, I don't think Graham has made it in, but we can definitely pass that question on and get his take on it, that we can post on the website or on Facebook somewhere. Jason, I'll send this question to you. Oops, sorry.
Comment briefly on that. I think the key consideration is to make sure that you have the mesh that stops the foxes getting in, but still allows the hatchlings to get out. So you want to be careful about the size of the mesh that you put on, and if you make it a 5 metre square and pin it down, it's pretty hard for a fox to dig in that far. So, you know, you're not going to monitor them all the time. You've got to be very careful you don't trap little hatchlings under the mesh when they hatch out.
Yeah, those are good points, Arthur. Thanks. Really good points. And I think Turtles Australia, if I can speak for Graham if he's not here, is they use a mesh that is about has 5 centimeter squares, so it should be big enough for hatchlings to get through. But as Arthur said, you definitely want to be careful to check it. Sorry, Jason, I'll come back to you. Would First Nations people only eat turtles at a certain time of year, or would they eat them any time of year?
Well, I think Australia being so big, it's sort of hard to answer that question only on a regional basis. Around here, they're not being eaten at all, but you go to places where they do eat them. The dry season, they chase them. So when it's wet, it's opportunistic. You'd have to ask directly the nations that would eat them from certain parts of the regions, whether it be the north or the south. And certainly, I can give you my anecdotes from around here. They're not been eaten much at all.
Thanks, Jason. There's a question I think we've covered about what size mesh, hole size do we recommend? I also have a student who's working on testing some of that mesh this year. So hopefully we can get back to you on that question, all of those questions as well in the future. Ricky, I'll come back to you again with this one because it's a TurtleSat question. How can people identify the turtles near them to record into the app, especially if they have several species in their area?
Yeah, the beauty of TurtleSat is that it recognises your location. And so we've built it so that the species, to a large extent, that are in your area. So it's not, we've essentially got about seven or eight different regions across Australia where it'll actually come up with the species that are likely to be in your area. But the other thing is that you can actually click on See Image and it'll actually show you a photo before you record it. And if you're still unsure, the best thing is take a photo and you can upload that photo and just click Unknown. If you're not sure what it is, we can identify it for you and update that in your list. So range of different ways to actually help you identify the species, and we can validate it with the photo as well.
Thanks, Ricky. And I've got another one for you. Since you've been working on some of the animal ethics applications, is there a minimum age for the nest experiment?
In terms of doing the nest, the nest survey, the nest predation experiment.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's what it's getting at. Yep.
Yeah. So we're going through that process at the moment. I think it would be important for to be of at least 16 and out there, but basically, I don't think it'd be an issue if you're out there with a parent or someone else. And obviously with this, we really want people working with pairs, but we're going through that process right now so that, next year will be the point that to actually, get out there. And guess the most important thing is you'll actually go through a training module. You'll actually see what to do. You'll sign up. We'll actually have to give you a little test to actually make sure that you've gone through that training manual as well. So stay tuned for that.
Thanks, Ricky. Deb, I'll go to you with this one. I lost it. How long is the in-ground incubation period for turtle eggs?
A great question, and it does depend slightly on the species. So I worked on the broad-shelled turtle for my PhD, and those guys will stay in the ground for up to a year. But most turtle species, just a few months. And so for turtles that will be laying their eggs tomorrow, we'll be expecting them to hatch in January and February. So usually just over summer when it's nice and warm and humid, and then they pop out with just enough time to fatten up before it gets cold again.
Thanks, Deb, and I'll stick with you for the next question. Sorry, I misread a name. Is there a contact person in the Taree for programs for the Manning River turtle?
That's a great question again. And what I would say is you can contact anyone, you can contact us through the website on our general email, and that will get directed to whoever's the most relevant person. There's lots of people, there's a good group in Taree working on the Manning River turtle. And so if you contact us through our general email on the website, we can put you in contact with who that person is and hook you up as needed. Thanks.
Thanks again, Deb. Wouldn't 1 million turtles need a lot of area to live? Is this danger assessed? Mike, I think this one might be really good for you since you did some biomass estimates back when you were starting some of this work in the 80s, didn't you?
Yes, thanks, Van. My expertise is really on the Murray, and I can tell you that we have lost more than 1 million turtles from the Murray. So 1 million turtles I'm envisaging as just the start. And of course, I'm just talking about the Murray. Doesn't it include the Darling or all the tributaries of the Darling? And it does include all those east flowing rivers that we've been hearing about with Bells, Manning and Bellinger River turtles and so on as well. So there's plenty of room for turtles and we're still going to be short. So as I said, I think I'm looking at this as step one.
Thanks, Mike. Another question, will you be monitoring hatchlings or released turtles as any measure of success for the project or other measures? I think I'll take that one. In addition to this project, so the 1 Million Turtles project, we also have co-running an ARC linkage grant, which has some support from a number of partners across Southeastern Australia. And one of the things that we are going to do in that project is mark hatchlings for release so that we can recapture them and identify them. And we also are going to put small radio tags on some of them so that we can track them for the first about 100 days or so after they hatch. Unfortunately, because of their size, the battery life on the tags is pretty limited, but we know very little about hatchling turtle ecology and biology. So this is an opportunity for us to, when hatchlings are released, to see where they go, what they do, and what their actual survival rate is like once they get to the water. So we have a lot of estimates about things like that, but hopefully we can get some good data on that alongside this project. Deb, I'll come back to you with another one. Another question, how can I help in my local area of Mount Isa?
That was a question from Lara Butler. Hello, Lara Butler. Do you know people of all ages can help? And if you're a young girl who's interested in turtles, then that's awesome because we need more women in science. So the best way to help is to study hard at school and to do what your parents tell you to do, but also to get out there. In Mount Isa, you've got the fossil turtle in Lawn Hill Gorge, that's a few hours drive away. So you should get your mum and dad to take you camping and then you can try and find the turtles in the rivers. But be careful not to get eaten by crocodiles. Thanks, Lara.
Thanks, Deb. Another question, and Lauren, if you're there, I'll pass this one to you. How do you determine if a turtle is male or female?
Me. I don't know that bit. Ricky, over to Ricky.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Hey guys, can you repeat the question, please?
How do you tell the difference between a male and female turtle, Ricky?
Well, it depends on the species. The short necks in general the males have a longer tail and they're a bit smaller. But the common long neck that everyone sees, even the experts find it really, really hard to tell the difference. So, but the females are bigger, and so the biggest ones out there are the females. But if you're comparing similar sized males and females, like smaller, it's really, really hard to tell the difference because tail size isn't distinctive there.
Thanks, Ricky. We've got a question, how many places have turtle habitat islands? So that's something that is also part of our linkage project, which is only just now getting started. So right now there's one area that I'm aware of, Ricky can confirm this for me or tell me if I'm wrong, in Blue Mountains. But we hope to have several more sites in Southeastern Australia with some of our partners. So we're still finalizing those details, but we need to test them and make sure that they work. And once we have a good design for them, that's something that we will be sharing with community groups to install as long as they work, fingers crossed. Another question I'll pass to Don. What is the age span or how the lifespan of turtles?
So that's variable, and in some cases we don't know. But most turtles live for many decades, depending on the species, well over 50 years in a lot of cases. But it's hard to keep track of that thing for a long term. So there's still some knowledge gaps there about just how long they typically reach in the wild, but several decades at least in most cases.
Thanks, Don. I think I'll put this question to Graham since Graham's there now. Graham, what do you know that causes eggs or hatchling turtles to die in the nest before they can come out?
Okay, I hope the audio is coming through okay because our internet's a bit dodgy up here. But in one case, we found a nest that had been in, the hatchlings had been entombed. So the ground was so hard that the hatchling simply couldn't dig out. And it was a nest of, I think we pulled out 19 dead hatchlings, and they'd been underground entombed for quite some time, because we've had other nests that have been nearly 2 years old that have had live hatchlings in it. So that's one cause. The sort of the polar opposite is the nest being too wet, where the eggs have basically failed because they've rotted in the nest, and we're finding eggs that are in the top of a nest seem to be having a slightly higher failure rate in the last few years. It's more an anecdotal observation than anything else, but we're just finding more individual eggs out of a clutch failing, and they seem to be the eggs at the top of the clutch. So I assume that's because the ground is warmer.
Thanks, Graham. That's great. But a concerning problem that, yeah, we're trying to look into more for the next couple of years, definitely. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to end with a final question, but I really appreciate everybody's participation. The last question I think is important. The person asked, I have a large farm dam in the Mount Lofty Ranges in SA, and they also happen to have an enormous short-necked turtle that is now 23 years old. Could my turtle be released into the dam, perhaps with other turtles, in order to give it a more natural life and to breed? This has some issues with it, or the idea. I understand why you may want to do that, but there's two concerns there, or potentially three concerns. One is a biosecurity risk. So if the turtle's picked up some kind of exotic pathogen somehow through food or exposure to other animals, you could accidentally introduce that to that area. There might also be incompatible, or it might not be the correct genetics for that area, which is another biosecurity issue. And then the third issue that you could run into with something like that is the permitting. So legally, we're not supposed to release animals unless we've got a permit, a license to do so. And there's a really strict process in most states to go through to do that. And that's something that we're working through with any of our head starting projects that we'd like to do. And it's a lot of work, but it's something that we definitely want to have in place before we, or as we release hatchlings into the wild. So there's some issues about that, and I wouldn't recommend doing it, but try to give that turtle a nice, happy life in captivity as much as you can would be my recommendation.
Van, could I just add that the short necks are not native to the Mount Lofty Ranges either, so you'd be introducing a species that is not native to there.
Thanks, Mike. For some reason, I read that as long neck in my head, which would have been native. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so with that, I just want to close with a couple of just reminders of the calls to action. So can I go to the next slide, please? And just a reminder, any questions we haven't gotten to will be posted either, we'll try to answer them on Facebook or on the FAQ page of the 1 Million Turtles website. So we really want to thank everybody for attending, and we hope that this program has engaged and inspired you to help us protect our Australian turtles. and stop them from going extinct. Next slide, please. So just to recap, how can you get involved? Next, please. Again, please download the new version of TurtleSat, which has been just upgraded for today, and start going out and finding turtles and turtle nests to report. Next, please. Here's the QR code, and next. Also, like we said before, please visit and bookmark 1millionturtles.com. And just a reminder, we will be contacting people via emails that you've registered with to let you know about when the training modules for the National Nest Predation Experiment and Turtle Nest Protection Methods are available, and also to keep you informed of the Turtles in Schools program as it develops. And you can unsubscribe from those at any time if you are no longer interested. Next, please. And again, if you see a turtle crossing a road and it's safe to do so, and emphasize on safe there, we really have to make sure that nobody gets hurt saving a turtle. Please move that turtle in the direction that it's heading, just across to the other side, and just help it on its way. And it will thank you for doing that, maybe by peeing on you a little bit, but that's just the way they say thanks. So just move them across and let them keep going on their way. Next, please. So just to end on this, thank you all for attending. We really do appreciate your interest and your participation in the program. We hope to see you soon and let you know with more of the project ideas that we would like you to be involved in. Here's where you can stay in touch with us. So we have our Facebook page, which is TurtleSat. There's also going to be, or there is a 1 Million Turtles Facebook page. There's also a TurtleSat Twitter feed, which you can access as well. And then finally, there's 1 Million Turtles, the website and email address. So if you would like to take a screenshot of this, we'll leave it up as we close. And I hope that everybody has a good evening, and I hope you enjoy Turtle Month, getting out and seeing nesting turtles this November. Hopefully you see a bunch, and hopefully they are not all being eaten by foxes. But those are the challenges that we face. So thanks again, everybody. We really do appreciate your support, and enjoy the rest of your week.